Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Batoul Abu Ali. Today I will present to you the poem of the romantic poet William Blake, which is London. It's his second most famous poem. As Palestinian people, the best way out of the pressure placed on us is to recite and write poetry. Let's have an overview of the topic of the poem and then get into the details. So let's start. This is London by William Blake. William Blake was a poet and painter who was born in Sofa, in London in 1757. He is an important figure of the Romantic age. The London poem is one of the best writing of the poet William Blake, in which he describes the city of London at the time full of misery, poverty, urban life, and the suffering of women, men, and children. So this is due to the Industrial Revolution and more preciously to the failure of people to build a society based on love and joy, as well as the assumption of power and its laws on people. So, William Blake's poem London consists of four stanzas, that mean four quatrains, which contain a rhyme scheme A, B, alternate rhyme scheme. So, in order to emphasize the misery and weakness, so alternate rhyme scheme, it reminds us of Shakespeare rhyme scheme, but not 100% Shakespearean rhyme scheme. William Blake's poem associated with urban life. So, in London poem by William Blake associated with urban life of city, I found melancholy tone of the poet pervading the poet, and he used the negative view of living and working in London at that time. Furthermore, William Blake used London to indicate that a British and urban life there prevents people from living freely and happily. And also William Blake, his poem by his own experience by using the first person narrator. So he was in London through his walking in its streets. London is the city that full of darkness and sadness and authority became restricted the freedom of the people life. So London is the city that's full of misery and sorrow. William describes the sights he says while he was walking in the streets of London, especially near the river Thames. You think this is river and the flow of river. It's a beautiful image, but in reality, the river is destroyed and the streets also destroyed. Everything was destroyed at that time in London. As he said in the first stanza, I wander through each shuttered street near where the shuttered Thames does flow. And also, he met a lot of faces full of fear and weakness. For example, the repetition of the word every that indicates a big sorrow of London's people. As he said in the second and third stanza, in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe, in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band. From here, I realize that the poet tone is very sad by applying the feeling of fear and pain among men and women, and every newborn, even a newborn, a little baby, everyone cry in fear and weak. They cry about the bad living in London at that time. So everything was damaged and destroyed by the politics rules, industrial revolution, and people themselves, while not allowing them to live comfortably. Furthermore, the fear and a great sadness in faces of people of Londoners due to the restriction imposed on them by law and politics. Marks of weakness and marks of woe. So even people are helpless to do anything or to bring changes in their life. People cannot speak. People people cannot speak any word because of fear that surrounds them. Every man in fans cry. Another example, the use of the words ban, mind, forged in the second stanza expresses fear and lack of a freedom of people, as well as their inability to speak because of fear, and their feelings are imprisoned on their own minds. Like, for example, in every voice, in every band, the mind forged manacles I hear. In the first two stanzas, there is a lot of repetition that indicates being a feeling of fear and weakness, being imprisoned people. So, additionally, William Blake referred to an important issue, which is authority of law and politics, how they impose restrictions on people and contribute to the oppression and depriving of adults and also infants. There is indicates of poverty that case of loss of the lives of young people and the children is through his poem. So, as he said, how the chimney sweeper cry. Also, the church and palaces put the authority of laws on people. Obviously, when he said oppose, every black in the charge oppose, and the hapless soldiers high runs in blood down palace walls. So these words, like for example, church of balls, run in blood, palace walls, soldier sign, chimney sweeper cry, explains the imposed power and the people's discomfortable with living bound by judgment and poverty. Those soldiers who suffer and serve the army under difficult conditions, and despite their suffering, and they also filled the walls of the palaces of crying and fear and sadness, and while the crying of the children who are supposed to be a light for others, their crying blocking the church and palaces, every blocking a church of balls as evidence that sheds light on bad politics and suffering of women. It's explained in the last stanza, which is that women do bad things as a result of extreme poverty. And this is then contributed hearing the voices of curse for what they did. Even this appears in the explosion of a newborn tears as but most through midnight, as he said, but most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot scares blast the newborn infant's tears. The last thing I want to say is that how William shed light on how powerful glass men negatively affect other innocent people. Like for example, as William said, and applies with the plagues the marriage hairs, exactly when he used the plagues to signify the goings on of the rich men and their action. So this is the end. Thank you.